Colour sergeant?
Sir.
I want half your men. Now.
Even number, sir.
Form 2 lines, on the double.
Sir.
In the early 1990s, I was living in Glen Iris in a small flat, and on my way to work up Malvern Road, I would see a military bookshop on a corner, and I started popping in and I bought some books, and I noticed he had a big folio with large prints of famous military scenes, and I browsed through them. I think I was tempted for a few Boer War images, but none of them were fantastic. But the ones that caught my eye were the Zulu War, Rorke's Drift and Isandlwana, painted by the French Victorian painter. And I bought them, and there was a framer across the road, and I took them in to be framed, and I specified that they were such grand, mighty prints, they were suited to a large country estate or a grand home. But they needed something imposing and grand to show off their magnificence. And so I had them framed, and I even wrote a little poem at the time for my friends about Isandlwana. That was my favourite one of the two. And one day I dreamed I might actually get to go to Isandlwana, and yesterday my dream came true. And as much as I thought I could have imagined what it would be like to be on that battlefield, nothing could have prepared me for the actual panoramic drama and size and magnificence of that imposing structure in Zululand. So let's have a look at it. Pointed out a couple of things I need to tell you guys. Oops, fall over the edge. What this woman's doing. Back at Isandlwana, so what Pat was saying was that the right horn comes across the top of that ridge there, okay? The right horn comes across that ridge. The left horn, just sat and observed it. Now the body of the buffalo comes straight ahead, right? And Pat says they're the older warriors, the more experienced ones, but they don't move as fast as the horns. Now the other thing I want to point out to you, see how the Isandlwana's doing it? So a bit like the Rorke's Drift Museum, they have a little Isandlwana museum. See, that's the shape of the shield I've asked them to make. It's more round than the long and thin one, but Pat says that probably the long and thin one is the more convenient to carry, but to me that looks more like a Zulu shield. And you can see that the shape of Isandlwana is kind of flat here, but from a distance it seems to have more of a conical from that hilltop we looked at it. So obviously this is an angle that you always see in that painting, but I was surprised. It's quite conical. Big cow horn. It's got scenes from the battle. Can't quite see them. So guys, you see that? That's more of your stabbing spear. As Pat said, if you're throwing your spear, then you're unarmed. What you need is a spear you can hold on to and a knob carrier. Of course, they found things here at the battle scene too. I'll put some images of what they found at Isandlwana, which are kept at the Dundee Museum. I'll put them in. So we're back at the Dundee Museum, and Pat came to see me today. He's going to be a tour guide for the next few days. Told me there's more stuff that I hadn't even known about. So we're looking at, this is stuff found at the Isandlwana battle site, a stirrup. That was down Fugitive's Way, a cavalry boot, spur and chain. It tells you where, a headgear, military helmet, Martini Henry, unfired cartridges, probably lost in flight, a horse bit, carbineers, helmet spike, buttons, more Martini Henrys, buttons. A lot of this is found where the men ran to save their lives, what they call the fugitive's path. Buttons, pieces of soul, uniform braiding, a horseshoe, and that was found in Adonga. Great ball shots found at Nyoni. The metal crucifix found at Dunford's Force. Isandlwana, big bullets, Martini Henrys, lead coins. Tins. Tin plate they might have eaten off. Lots of stuff they found, isn't it? Oh, this is really good. Nails, a beer bottle. Horse comb. Look at the size of those bullets. Martini Henrys. Okay. Bits of pipe. There's a pipe. A breastplate. Isandlwana. Assegai blade, boot spur, that's from a snuff container, spoon, a salt spoon, a gilded button, more stuff found, a plate. You can imagine it was, I think, some time before the British got to find their men on Isandlwana, so a lot of this stuff would have just been left behind, or it came off during the battle and was sort of been discarded. It's worthless junk to the British that came and tidied up. It's not junk to us, is it? This is great stuff. Oh, this is from the Battle of Flabane. And so you can have a look, because it's real interesting. Look at the bugle. Been stomped on, hasn't it? And look at this Martini Henry. It's got the guy's initials on it. Well, what Pat's saying is he spent the last 20 or 30 years looking for the colours. They've never found the colours that were lost in the Buffalo River. British uniform. Ah, now look at that shield. Yeah, that's a beauty, isn't it? Yeah, that's a beauty. Some shells, 7-pounder shells. Ointment jars, bits and pieces. A rocket, yeah. We came past where the rocket detachment were on a ridge. Regimental badges. And this is the painting I've got at home, of course, which is the famous one. But it doesn't, the Isandlwana is always, it doesn't have the conical top that we saw from the distance. The Queen's Colour, Melville and Coghill, this is somewhat controversial. So your colours can't fall into the hands of the enemy. So Melville rode out of the battle with the colours crossing Buffalo River. His horse floundered and he and his colour were swept downstream. Coghill had his horse shot from under him, made for the rock to which Melville was clinging. They made their way to the Natal bank, were killed. The colour was recovered sometime later. Pat's just been giving me a bit of a talk about what we're looking at here, and the Osmo doesn't really do it justice, or it kind of does. So I don't know if you can see, there's a conical hill dead in front there. That's where they had a British picket, and they retreated when they saw what was coming. Now the rocket battalion was just to the left of that. But where we are now is what they call Durnford's stand. I don't know all the characters. I know Durnford was an officer that came upon this camp, and whether he had rank or not above the commanding officer at the camp, but he wasn't going to take over. But Durnford saw some action here and he enjoyed himself. There's a donga there. There was some fighting down there until things got too bad and he needed some ammunition. But this is the outer ring of the British defence line. So there's Isandlwana. You're going to see it, it's going to be small on the Osmo, but it gives you an idea of the distance. So that ridge line is where they first saw Zulus coming over. That's where we took our first photos of Isandlwana, and the body of the buffalo came around. We're getting the horn of the buffalo, the Zulu boys racing around there fit. I mean, feeding them. Oh, I couldn't run the distance of this fence line. I couldn't run up to that tree. But these were young Zulus that could run and bolt when they needed to, just pick up speed. So we're a long way from the camp in visual distance. It's not very far on the road. So they sent out from camp, Pullen, I think his name was, he sent another detachment. He saw that Durnford was in trouble, so he sent some more men to this dead ground here. What we found is that for a lot of this area around over there, you can be concealed. There could have been Zulus all along in this donga here that couldn't be seen. They could have sat there patiently. They still don't know, well, according to Pat, they don't know exactly how the Zulus got so close to the British and were able to smash them with such effectiveness, that how they moved so quickly without detection to get so close to the British. Anyway, yeah, really glad I've got Pat with me. He's a great historian. He's telling me some really good stories. So yeah, I was wrong. There are no cans in front of me, so they didn't fall back up against the mountain. They'd started running.
Most of it are all channeled into this saddle between the outcrop and Isandlwana. You'll see how they proliferate just now. There's millions of them up there. Well, there's 310 of them.
I just want to get out and examine one a bit closer.
Oh, you see lots of them. And plenty there.
Okay. They're becoming more plentiful now. And who put the cans up?
Various burial details, but eventually they gave it to a civil servant in Natal, a guy called Alfred Boast, who basically finished the job in 1883. It took 4 years before they were reasonably satisfied that most people had been buried. And of course, after 4 years, you have no idea whether he's a British under there, and or Zulus, and or animals, or whatever. They weren't really careful. They just picked up every day and they would find. So now need a DNA testing.
Yeah.
Find out exactly who's underneath it.
There were piles of bones.
Yes, and everything else that you could find. It's a scraps of uniform, all bullets, buttons, badges, you name it. The whole lot just shoved into
Look,
a-
look now
into
at
a
the
sack.
shape, folks. Look at that shape now. I think we going on about it. There's some distance down there.
Yeah, there's some there, but there's some even more down in that open
Oh,
field
yeah.
where we were just there. That's the sort of ground that you're trying to cover with 800 men that you can rely on. The colonials, not too much, really. Not too sure of their loyalties. I mean, if you're a colonial troop, would get the hell out of here as fast as you possibly could. But you look how they liberate here.
Had that memorial there.
Yeah, that's the Natal Carbineers. But that would have been the approximate position where the ammo wagon was for the first battalion. Would have been somewhere okay. Then in here, hospital.
So, wow, this, I'm going to say bucket list, but it's kind of more than that. So I remember writing a poem in the 80s about the remoteness of Isandlwana, how no one ever comes here anymore except the ghosts. Occasionally, you know, you come out here and you develop a nosebleed and you drip a bit of blood onto this ground, and suddenly it springs to life. A bit like the pyramids, the housing is right up to the edge of the Isandlwana, and these cairns are everywhere, but there's a lot of them in this particular vicinity, so this is one of the stands they've made, and Pat's going to take me up to where my painting was situated. James Adrian Blackster, eldest son of the late Anthony Adrian, Aberdeen and volunteer trooper in the Natal Carbineers, killed here in action. The Carbineers. It's a photographer's dream with the cows in the background and here lies John Philip Archibald, Sergeant Conductor, 1st Native Contingent, killed at Isandlwana, 22nd of January 1879. For King and Empire. These pretty little pink flowers that grow in the cans. I mean, if you're going to be slaughtered somewhere on overseas duty, this is just beautiful, isn't it? That's the conical hill again where the pickets were driven off, and that's the ridge line that the body of these Zulus came across. But as Pat keeps saying, see that little white roof there? There's villages in there that you can't see from here because it drops away, and also where those trees are, see that? There's a big donga there. So you could have had 4,000 Zulus sitting in there twiddling their thumbs waiting for the, you know, we're trying to figure out how they got as close to the British as they did. Affectionate memories of my beloved husband, George Ernest Hitchcock, at the Battle of Isandlwana. He's aged 36. it's a big proximity. So the British kept sending men forward to see where the Zulus were. And of course, when they discovered where they were, what you really wanted was a tight horseshoe back up against that Isandlwana rock, but they were, by that stage, spread out. You know, I was saying to Pat, I had a vision of a British soldier there, and they're all in a long horseshoe looking at each other saying, okay, fire, they're coming at us. But that's not how it was. They were groups of men, as you can see by the cans. Here's a headstone that's been lost. Perhaps, yeah, there may have been writing on there. Can't tell now. Okay. There's a monument over here for, I think they're the Natal kind of contingent, the Natal volunteer. They've been smashed into by the left horn of the Zulu attack. There's like a kopie. The Isandlwana is there. What an impressive, like it's far more impressive visually than I could ever have imagined. The story of what happened here is, of course, the main focus, but it's the visuals of the place. How 20,000, they estimate, no one knows, how 20,000 men could have run, okay, run from, say, the top of that road there, or that ridge, run the distance to get here, to smash into the English lines, and to have the stamina and strength to then face British bullets and engage in hand-to-hand combat with trained British troops. They gave us a little video to watch. Before we got here, I probably wouldn't have, but Pat was with me, so I'm glad I watched it. They estimate about 3,000 Zulus lost their lives here. And you think at the Battle of the Bighorn, and they're victories for the natives people, but even at the Bighorn, the Indians lost a lot of men to achieve that. Same here with the Zulus. But Pat says, as far as the Zulus go, they weren't too troubled by losing 3,000 warriors, because that's more booty to the others, the survivors. It's kind of hard to read, but something about the Natal Carbineers. And there's the symbol for the Natal Carbineers. There's a few names down the bottom. Yeah, it's hard to read. Something about with brave men's blood of England's sake, and duty be their names sacred among us, neither praise nor blame. Something to their epitaph, but let it be simple as that which marked their Thermopylae. Tell it in England, those that pass us by here, faithful to their something, her soldiers die. That's impressive, eh? Isandlwana, 22nd of January, erected by the regiment in 1907. Just going to skirt back to the car by one of the many cairns that are dotted over, and that rock was here during the battle. All these rocks were here during the battle. Just skirt back via the... We haven't been to the main cairn. Oh, look at it. We'll cut back to Pat. There's another cairn. Stones are falling off. There you are. Men. Once again, perfect car. I've got for this. It was an old Zulu man that looked like it had a few shakies of the beer. Started saying something in a very animated motion as we drove past him. I said to Pat, what's he saying? Pat says, oh, he's very impressed with the car. He'd like one. Me too. I'd like one. And it looks so like a snooker table, like a pool table. It's just smooth it looks. Once again, you know, the sounds on that day. The roar of the impi as they caught sight of the British, and they felt they were within grasp. They knew they'd be able to reach the British with their assegais. Must have been a roar among them of anticipation to get hand to hand with these white devils. What about the British? How freaking terrifying when you see chaos. The last thing you want in a battle is chaos. You want orderly. You want to fall back on instructions you've been issued, you've learnt back in your military academies and schools. What you don't want is the unexpected. And the British line started to collapse. He would have looked over and said, oh Christ, those men over there are starting to run towards me, and they're being followed by a stream of Zulus. It's at that stage one says, do I bring my